Once upon a time, there was a monk who spent 20 years pushing a mountain. Every morning at dawn, he placed his hands against the cold stone and pushed with all his strength until nightfall. 20 years. And the mountain never moved even an inch. Madness, devotion, or perhaps the deepest lesson you will ever receive about your own life. Come with me on this journey, because what this monk discovered will forever change the way you face everything in your life that refuses to move. In the northern mountains, where the wind carved shapes into ancient stone, there lived a Zen master named Kenzo. He was not known for sermons or writings. He was known for something far stranger. For 2 decades, he had been pushing the same mountain. Every single day, without exception, Kenzo walked the narrow path up to the eastern slope. There, before a sheer wall of granite, he placed his open palms against the rock and pushed. He pushed as if the mountain could move. He pushed as if the universe were waiting for that effort. He pushed because his teacher before dying had told him, "Your task is to move this mountain." The villagers watched him with a mix of reverence and pity. Some said he was a saint. Others said he had lost his mind. But everyone agreed on one thing. Kenzo never gave up. One day, a young monk named Taro arrived at the monastery. He had traveled for months in search of teachings that might transform his life. He was 28 years old, with a heart full of unanswered questions. When he heard about Kenzo and his strange practice, Taro thought, this master must know something profound. 20 years of effort cannot be meaningless. At dawn the next morning, Taro followed Kenzo along the path. He watched him place his hands on the mountain. He saw every muscle in his body tighten. He heard his deep breathing as he pushed and pushed and pushed. Hours passed. The sun climbed high in the sky. Kenzo never stopped. When the master finally lowered his hands and turned back toward the monastery, Taro approached him respectfully. "Master Kenzo," he said, bowing deeply, "I have observed your practice. I must ask, when will the mountain move?" Kenzo looked at him with calm eyes, almost amused. "The mountain," he replied, "has never moved, not even a millimeter." Taro felt the ground tilt beneath his feet. "Then, why do you keep pushing?" "Because my teacher told me to," Kenzo said simply, and continued walking. That night, Taro could not sleep. 20 years pushing something that would never move? Was that devotion, or stubbornness disguised as discipline? Over the following week, Taro returned every morning to watch Kenzo. And each day, the same scene repeated itself. The master pushing the unmoving mountain with a dedication that defied all logic. But something began to catch Taro's attention. Something he hadn't noticed at first. Kenzo never seemed frustrated. He never struck the rock in anger. He never complained or sighed in defeat. On the contrary, when he finished his daily practice, the master descended the mountain with a look of peace Taro had never seen in any human being. One morning, Taro could no longer hold back. "Master," he said, "I need to understand. I've seen people dedicate their lives to meditation, to study, to helping others. All of that makes sense. But this, what is the point of pushing something that will never move?" Kenzo sat down on a rock and motioned for Taro to sit beside him. "Tell me, young Taro," he said, "why did you come to this monastery?" "Because my life isn't moving forward," Taro confessed, surprised by his own honesty. "I've tried everything. I've meditated, studied, followed every teaching I could find. But there are things inside me that don't change. Fears that won't leave. Patterns that repeat. Relationships that don't heal. I feel like I'm pushing a door that never opens." Kenzo nodded slowly. "And what have you done when facing those closed doors?" "I push harder," Taro said. "I analyze more. Meditate more. Try harder. Exactly, Kenzo said. You push harder, just as I push this mountain. Silence settled between them. In the distance, a bird sang. But you know the mountain won't move, Taro finally said. I still hope my doors will open. And what if they don't? Kenzo asked gently. What if some doors simply aren't meant to open when you want them to? What would you do then? A knot formed in Taro's throat. I don't know. I suppose I would give up. Ah, Kenzo said with a quiet, mysterious smile. That is the trap. You believe there are only two options. Push until exhaustion, or surrender in defeat. But there is a third path, one almost no one sees. In the days that followed, Kenzo invited Taro to join him in his practice. Not just to observe, but to push the mountain with him. At first, Taro felt ridiculous. Here he was, a spiritual seeker, pushing a massive rock that had no intention of moving. But he obeyed. On the first day, he pushed with all his strength. Every muscle tensed. His jaw clenched. After an hour, his body trembled with exhaustion. Master, he gasped, this is impossible. I'm using all my energy and accomplishing nothing. Well observed, Kenzo said. Now notice something else. How is your mind while you push? Taro closed his eyes and watched. His mind was a storm. This isn't working. I'm wasting time. I should be doing something else. This is absurd. My mind is fighting, Taro admitted. Exactly, Kenzo said. You are pushing the mountain with your body, but you are also pushing against reality with your mind. Double resistance. Double exhaustion. On the second day, Kenzo gave him a different instruction. Today, he said, push the mountain, but this time fully accept that it will not move. Taro looked at him, confused. How can I push and accept that it won't move at the same time? Try, Kenzo said, and you will see. If this story is resonating with you, if you feel there are mountains in your own life that you've been pushing without results, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here we share Zen teachings that transform the way we inhabit our lives. Tap the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any lessons. And now, let's continue Taro's journey, because what he's about to discover is exactly what you need to hear. Taro placed his hands on the cold rock. He took a deep breath. And for the first time before pushing, he said to himself, "This mountain will not move. And that is okay." Then he pushed. Something extraordinary happened. His body was still making the effort, his muscles still tightening, but his mind was calm. There was no inner struggle, no frustration, just the simple act of pushing without the mental war of demanding a different outcome. After an hour, when he stopped, Taro did not feel defeated. He felt whole, as if, for the first time, he had done something without being divided inside. "Master," he said in awe, "what was that?" "That," Kenzo replied, "was true acceptance. It is not surrender. It is stopping the fight with what is, while still participating in life. Pushing without clinging to the result. Acting without clenching your inner fists." Over the following weeks, Taro continued the practice. And each day a new understanding emerged. He realized that his frustration had never come from the situations themselves, but from his resistance to them being what they were. He realized that he could continue trying, continue acting, but without that invisible tension that consumes more energy than physical effort ever could. He realized that acceptance was not an ending, but a wiser way of being present. 1 month later, while pushing the mountain in silence beside Kenzo, Taro began to cry. "Master," he said through tears, "I understand now. It's not about the mountain. It was never about the mountain." Kenzo smiled. "Go on. My former teacher never asked you to move the mountain, Taro said. He asked you to push it. The task was never to change the mountain. The task was to change you. Yes, Kenzo said softly. For 20 years, I have not been trying to move the mountain. I have been allowing the mountain to move me. Each day, pushing this rock taught me to release control. It taught me that life does not obey my urgency. It taught me that I can act fully without needing the world to bend to my expectations. Taro looked at his own hands resting on the rock. I have my own mountains, he said. Situations that don't change. People who don't respond the way I hope. Parts of myself that resist transformation. We all do, Kenzo replied. And the question is never how to make them move faster. The question is this: can you be with them without tearing yourself apart inside? Can you continue participating in life without turning every moment into a battle? 6 months later, Taro was still at the monastery. But he no longer climbed the mountain to push it. He had found his own practices, his own ways of cultivating that deep acceptance. One afternoon, while sweeping the monastery courtyard, a group of travelers arrived asking for the famous master who moved mountains. Taro smiled at the misunderstanding. Master Kenzo does not move mountains, he said. He allows mountains to move him. The travelers left, confused. But one of them, a woman with tired eyes, remained behind. Young monk, she said, I've spent 3 years trying to save my marriage. I've tried everything. Therapy, conversations, sacrifices. Nothing changes. I'm exhausted. Are you telling me I should give up? Taro looked at her with compassion. No, he said. I'm telling you there is a difference between giving up and stopping the fight with reality as it is right now. You can continue loving. You can continue participating. But without the tension that is draining you. Accept this moment exactly as it is, not as you wish it were. And from that acceptance, not from struggle, make your decisions. The woman looked at him in silence for a long time. Then, for the first time in months, her shoulders dropped. Something in her face softened. No one has ever given me permission to stop pushing, she whispered. It's not surrender, Taro said. It's wisdom. That night, Taro found Kenzo sitting beneath the stars. Master, he said, there is something I still don't understand. If the mountain taught you everything you needed to learn, why do you keep pushing it every day? Kenzo laughed softly. Because the lesson never ends, Taro. Every day, my ego tries to return. Every day the temptation appears, to control, to demand, to resist what is. And every day I return to the mountain to remember. I can act fully without needing the world to change according to my will. It's like a meditation, Taro said. It is exactly a meditation. The most honest one I know. On a meditation cushion, the mind can deceive itself. It can pretend to be peaceful. But in front of this mountain, there is nowhere to hide. Either I accept that it will not move, or I exhaust myself in illusion. Every day I choose acceptance. And every day that choice frees me a little more. Taro remained silent, gazing at the stars. Master, he finally said, did you ever wonder what would have happened if you had spent these 20 years doing something else? Every day during the first 10 years, Kenzo admitted. But now I know the answer. If I had done anything else without learning this lesson, I would have been pushing 1,000 invisible mountains, relationships I tried to force, people I tried to change, situations I resisted. This physical mountain saved me decades of pushing mental ones. Then it was the perfect path, Taro said. It was not perfect, Kenzo corrected gently. It was the path I was given, and I learned to walk it without fighting it. That is the entire difference. The next morning, Taro packed his bag. It was time to return to the world, to carry this teaching into his own life. Before he left, Kenzo handed him a small stone. "This stone," he said, "comes from the mountain. Carry it with you. And every time you feel you are pushing something that does not move, hold it in your hand. Ask yourself, am I pushing to change the situation, or am I pushing because I cannot accept that it is the way it is?" And if the answer is the second, Taro asked, then breathe. Loosen your inner fists. Accept the moment exactly as it is. And from that acceptance, not from struggle, choose your next step. Because the steps we take from acceptance are always clearer than the steps we take from resistance. Taro bowed deeply. "Thank you, Master, for teaching me that acceptance is not the end of the path." "No," Kenzo smiled. "Acceptance is the path." If this story touched something within you, if you recognize the mountains you have been pushing in your own life, I invite you to share this video with someone who needs it. And subscribe to our channel, Wisdom of Being, where each week we explore these ancient teachings that transform the way we inhabit our existence. Leave a comment below. What is your mountain? What have you been pushing without results? Not to give up, but to begin relating to it in a new way. Until our next meeting. And remember, peace does not arrive when the mountains move. Peace arrives when we stop demanding that they do. Thank you for being here. Namaste.